Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Diversion Authority Finance Committee meeting for September 27, 2023. With that, Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Here.
Mayor Mahoney.
Here.
Mr. Peterson. Mr. Steen.
Here.
Ms. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Ebinger.
Here.
Mr. Redlinger.
Here.
Mr. Grimberg. Mr. Pepcorn. Mayor Carlson.
Here.
Mr. Reitz.
Here.
Ms. Madriga.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you, Don. Item number 2 is to approve the minutes of August 23rd. They are on page 3 of the packet, and it has been distributed.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a second. It's been moved by Mayor Mahoney, second by Mayor Carlson, to approve the minutes of August 23rd as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is to approve the order of the agenda. Again, it has been distributed. It is in your packet.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Mr. Steen, it's been moved. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Mayor Carlson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda as presented for September 27, 2023. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 4 is the approval of the bills. We'll call on Susan Thompson, Finance Director for the City of Fargo. It's on page 9 of the attachments. Good afternoon and welcome.
Hi, thank you. The bills as are listed on page 9. They total nearly $4 million, primarily all reimbursements and regular items. Does anyone have any questions on any of these?
Questions for Mrs. Thompson? This is an actionable item. Need a motion?
I will move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Redlinger. It's been moved. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mr. Steen. It's been moved and seconded to approve the bills of $3,933,527.35 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Aye.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Ebinger.
Aye.
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Reitz.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
And that is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Item number 5 is the finance report. Again, we call on Susan Thompson, Finance Director for the City of West Fargo. It's in the packet. It's on page 26. Please.
City of Fargo. Cash as listed, total assets of $215,162,444. Liabilities of $93,000 and a half. Net position of $215,068,862 for the month ending August 31st. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from the committee? This is an actionable item and is a voice vote.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. Is there a second, please? Second. Mayor Mahoney seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the finance report as presented by Mrs. Thompson. It's on page 26 of the packet for $215 million is our financial statement, $215,068,862. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6, again, we'll call on Mrs. Thompson, Fiscal Agent Investment Report. This is a new item that was brought forth after an inquiry last month. So,
Yes, my understanding is Commissioner Strand had a question at the regularly scheduled meeting. So this was a good opportunity for me to do a little digging and learn some things since I'm pretty new. So he wasn't real specific in his questions, so I just put some points together, and if there's more questions, I can do a little more research. His question was on the investment strategy, and I'm assuming he raised it because on page 26, which is more of the income statement, we can see that our interest income last year was $1.3 million, Year-to-date this year, it's 5. So the simple answer to that question is we have more cash and interest rates are higher. But I have a little bit more explanation on that. So I did a little digging. Last year, the average balance for cash was about $120 million. As we can see, we're up in the cash, the liquid cash at 182. And of that, 52 million just came in this month. It's the quarterly reimbursement for the legacy. And so what I've been told from the staff in the back that work on this daily is that, and you probably, I'm sure I'll know this, we really haven't touched much of the sales tax. Everything gets paid through the legacy, so we're just accumulating an extra $5 million every month. And then looking at our policies, did a little digging on that too, and as fiscal agent, there was an agreement that was edited in 2017 by Kent, and I could read some of Kent's personality in it. He's very specifically said as a fiscal agent, our responsibility is to manage the funds like we manage the city's funds. And then he had written in there specifically that we were not a fiscal management organization, so we weren't making like policy type decisions. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing at the city and kind of why that's advantageous at this time. So the money within the cash item on page 27, that is primarily the monies that are coming in from both the legacy fund and the legacy fund and the sales tax. It's kind of what we're using to pay the bills. It's our liquid cash. And that is managed through one of the city's pooled cash accounts. It's a government program through Wells Fargo. It's a sweep account nightly, and it's paying 5.25%. Then a small portion of that balance, along with the Horace and the other trust account, are more with our investment person, and those are a little bit longer term. Because of that, they were making a little less, but now that as they're rolling off, they're getting invested in a little higher earnings. Those are also making about 5%. So because of the yield curve currently, our shorter term are making more than our longer term, which works for us in this case. But I think as that changes or corrects itself, we're going to want to look at how we invest some of those longer term funds. But that's going to require some coordination with Joel, and as far as when you're expecting that money to go out, because it's going to need to be liquid. So that'll probably foster more conversation. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Questions? Mayor Mahoney?
I think, Susan, one of the things John was asking is he realized recently one of the banks was offering a 5-month, 5.5% return on investment. And I think what he's curious about is, do we move much of the money anywhere to chase the interest?
My experience so far has been, and research is no, we're really looking for a financial institution that kind of provides all our services. There's not a lot of banks in town that can do $100 million sweep every night or $200 million of sweep every night. Plus, they provide us a bunch of other services. The program that we're in is designed specifically for governments. It's kind of a nice, it's a good rate without having to actively kind of manage your money. So that's the process that Kent established, and that I think has been working very well for the city.
Well, I think your good example is escrow account for the Fargo Dome, where that went to and where it's gone now with investment policy, right? We're not quite this play in place. This money we actually have to have. We can't chase sometimes the market.
Correct. This is short-term cash that we know we're going to need to pay for bills going forward. Fargo Dome is a totally different situation. That was a long-term escrow account, and it's actually managed by the State Investment Board, and it's invested in things other than treasuries. It's invested in we take risk on that. We do not take risk or much on these types of assets because of what they are needed for.
So what you're trying to argue with me is that we have to be risk averse?
Well, we're not setting policy, this group is, but that would be my suggestion.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Ms. Thompson. That's an informational item only. Item number 7 is the Executive Director's Financial Report. Call on Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Finance Committee. So revenues for this month, we had about $4 million for the City of Fargo sales tax and just over $2 million for the Cass County sales tax. Sales tax does appear to be coming in, on as anticipated. So we should be able to reach our budgeted amount for revenues on the sales tax pretty easily this year. As a reminder, those are a few months behind. And so obviously it doesn't, we're about halfway there on the Cass County sales tax, but that's really a 3-month delay, I believe, on that. So looking good there. You can see our the legacy bond draws, obviously a large one this month, $47 million. And then a small North Dakota SRF, revenue draw as well. So for total current month revenue of $56 million. I'll move on to the cost side of things. So we'll just look at the level 1 status here. If you guys want to look or have any questions, we can dig deeper into the level 2. But overall, the program budget looks good for this year. We don't have any significant concerns. Obviously, this committee has been doing a good job of kind of balancing this cash budget as we go and dealing with unanticipated things on a month-by-month basis. So we don't have anything this month to be concerned of. Certainly, tracking our year-to-date costs seem appropriate with what our budgets are. I'll just make a couple notes here. The lands and impacted property mitigation. We are still anticipating to have pretty significant costs in the last few months here. So I think we have $42 million remaining in the cash budget. I think we're probably going to be pretty close, given if everything goes as planned. We may underrun a little bit on the engineering design. We'll have to see kind of what the remainder of the year holds for kind of the aqueduct design and the reviews on those as well. And then also we still have a large amount in our cash budget for third-party MOUs and mitigations. I think we are anticipating to have a number of those costs hit later in the year here for utility relocates as well. So overall, no concerns from my part on the cash budget for this year. And we'll get into the draft cash budget for next year here later on in the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Any questions? Any questions? Moving on to item number 8 is the DA Board approval contracting actions. Again, we call him Mr. Paulson. There are 2 items, A and B, and it starts on page 63, 65, and 67. Mr. Paulson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll maybe go through both of these, and you can either make a motion for one or both together. So the first contracting action for the committee's consideration is a snow removal contract. So we did go out and receive quotes for snow removal coming up this winter. These are for properties owned by Cass County Joint and MCC JPA. And so we are recommending a contract with Snowbusters LLC for this next year with an estimated budget of $10,000. The second contracting action is Work Package 52C. This is a change order for the work for the Authority Administration Building. As the committee can recall, 2 months ago, we had a discussion about bringing fill in for the building site. The committee had authorized up to $1 million for that contract. We did execute a contract to haul in material. We also had material that was placed from a Corps of Engineers project as well at the location for use. Unfortunately, as some of the material was being placed, it was determined that there was too high of an organic content in some of the material. So we did further investigation, and it was apparent that we had to remove some material and replace it with suitable material. Of course, this is very concerning because we need to have suitable material with a building pad on top of this long term. And so this contract is a change order to remove about 25,000 cubic yards of unsuitable material at the site.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Any questions on these 2 items? You can take them one at a time or together. What's your
Move to
pleasure?
approve both actions.
Mayor Mahoney moves to approve item A and B under the contracting actions. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Mayor Carlson seconds. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Aye.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Ebinger.
Aye.
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
And that is everyone.
Thank you. Item number 9 is MOUs and agreements. We have a number of items to discuss, and we'll call on Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We only have one MOU for the Finance Committee to consider today, and that is a three-party agreement that's between Montana Dakota Utilities, MDU, the Savagos, and the Authority. This fulfills a couple of tasks. Under the settlement agreement with the upstream, we were responsible to provide utility access to relocated farm sites. The Savagos have a fully operational farm that qualifies under the settlement agreement as an ongoing farm operation. And this also is part of the relocation part of the property buyouts and acquisitions. So this agreement does not have any cost assigned to it yet because it really is an agreement to agree. It commits the parties to an extension agreement and then an additional agreement regarding that there would be payment of additional, or commits them to service interruptible service. And so the costs will be taken care of in the future agreements, but those costs are included within our current budget for the project. So this is really an agreement to agree in the future to provide gas service to the site, because their current site has gas service through the dryers.
So this cost is included in the program budget?
Yeah, but this MOU doesn't have a specific cost assigned to it because it's really an agreement to agree in the future regarding those cost issues.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Shockley? This is an actionable item.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mayor
Second.
Carlson, and thank you, Mayor Mahoney, for the second. Been moved and seconded to approve the MOU and agreement with Montana Dakota Utilities, the Savagos, and the Metro Flood Diversion Authority, as outlined by Mr. Shockley. Is there any discussion? Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Aye.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Ebinger.
Yes.
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
And that is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Item 10 is other business. We have Chris Bockergaard has an item that's recommendation to award a bid. Mr. Bockergaard.
Thanks, Chair Dardis. Yeah, today we have one bid package that we are recommending award for this month. It's work package 38B. It's another home structure demolition project or removal project. We received two bids from Industrial Builders and Schmidt & Sons. They straddled our estimate, so we're comfortable with the pricing. We are recommending award to Schmidt & Sons Construction in the amount of $407,557.75. I stand for any questions if anybody has any.
Questions for Mr. Bockergaard on that item?
Why did they get 75 cents? I mean, what? Just
very-
hoping that somebody else is, well, just $1 lower or something?
Very good question, Mayor. That comes down to that some days. So
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney. Is there a second, please?
Steen seconds.
Mr. Steen seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve and award the bid to Schmidt Brothers for $407,557.75 as outlined by Mr. Bockergaard. Is there any discussion? Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Aye.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Ebinger.
Aye.
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
And that is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Item B is the 2024 draft cash budget. This is just a draft, and we'll call on Mr. Paulson to share that with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few things I want to point out before we go and look at the overall line items. Peggy, if you could scroll down to the bottom summation. There we go. So just the middle column there, that 955 million, that's our cost to date. So we've almost approached the $1 billion mark for costs paid out. So I just wanted to make a note on that. The other note I want to make, if you move over to the right, you can see the 235. That's the cash budget for this year. The proposed cash budget for 2024 is on the far right-hand side at 218. So I think this is the first year that we've actually, or next year we're planning on spending less than the year before. So that's kind of notable as well. That probably won't, this will just be an anomaly because as the contract with the P3 progresses, most of our cost payments for Milestone will be towards the end of construction. So we'll start to see our cash budgets increase pretty significantly in the out years. If you could move back up to the top, Peggy, that would be great. I'll just go through this. Pay attention to the blue rows. As I go through this, I'll just kind of compare last year to this year. So the first one would be the channel P3. That's for our legal and management costs for the administration of the P3 contract. You can see we are anticipating to spend about $14 million next year. That's up from $10 million this year, and that is due to more activity with the P3 contract as they're ramping up to full construction phase. The next blue line there is the milestone payments. You can see we are anticipating to increase and have some milestone payments in 24 from $22 million to $35 million for 24. The next line item is our mitigation programs. We are seeing a pretty significant decline in that. You can see $800,000 we do have plugged in for the Oxbow-Hickson work. That is utility relocation work in anticipation of the Corps finishing out the remaining Oxbow work that they have contracted for. The next row there is the in-town levies for the city of Fargo. So you can see a requested amount of $28.7 million. That is up from about $20 million from last year. Next line is the lands and property mitigation. That's our lands acquisition program. You can see pretty similar costs, but we are seeing a little bit of a dip next year. I think we're reaching our peak this year, or actually this fall, moving into next spring, as we start to move forward with the acquisition process of all the property and flowage easements in order to have that process complete by the end of construction to have the project operational on schedule. The next line item is the non-construction costs. So this would be our engineering, legal, financial, and program management costs. Pretty similar, a bit of a dip from this year. We are proposing about $27 million budget for next year. So we are seeing some of that engineering work kind of fall off as well as we're moving more into a traditional review process with the P3 contract. Next line item is the contingency. Of course, we're not planning on using any contingency next year, best case scenario. And if we do, we'll certainly bring any sort of things that are outside of, that would be contingency related to the Finance Committee for discussion. And the last line item there is the third-party MOU mitigation. Again, we will continue with utility relocates and our agreed upon third-party MOU costs with other not member entity, but other jurisdictions impacted by the project. The remaining area on the bottom is our anticipated financing, reserves, and debt service, and those are fairly similar to, actually they're identical to this year's costs. So again, this is just the draft budget. We will continue to bring this forward at the Finance Committee meetings as we refine it and realize some of the costs from the 23 cash budget this year. Obviously, if there's expenditures that don't hit this year in 23, those will be added on to the 24 cash budget as we would anticipate those costs to come in early in 2024. So certainly open to any questions that any committee members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Mr. Steen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Say just a quick question, Joel, on this. So it's a draft. Any significant items that are really hanging out there that you don't have a good handle on, or we're talking tweaking going forward, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a great question, Commissioner Steen. So, the lands and property mitigation is always a wild card for us. So we do our best to kind of look out at the different, land cases that we have and try to judge, which ones are going to settle, which ones we think are going to, move forward into, eminent domain legal actions. And that would, significantly push out the cost of those. However, we're always open to negotiations. So sometimes we start the eminent domain proceedings and we end up settling with the landowner before it goes through. So those are always difficult ones to kind of nail down, especially when we have a hard stop at December 31st and start with the new cash budget on January 1st. So I do anticipate the lands budget to change over the next few months as we get closer to the end of the year, and we'll have more clarity on what that looks like as well. As far as the other areas, perhaps the utility relocates may change a bit depending on the length of the construction season this fall. If we have, a prolonged or, if winter gets pushed back, which we hope it does, some of the utility relocates may be able to be expedited and get done, this year and not carry over into next year. But by and large, the engineering, the program management, the legal, I feel very comfortable with those budgets for next year.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions of Mr. Paulson? Nothing? Does any member of the Finance Committee have anything they'd like to bring forward this afternoon? Staff have anything for a non-agenda item you'd like to bring forward? Our next meeting will be October 25th, 2023. If there's no further business, we stand adjourned. Thank you.